the way traditionally out in the wild potential is used, it's usually like expectations met with like harshness on yourself, always feeling like you failed. And so really our equation is how to meet potential with compassion. Welcome to The Shift, where we search for ways to do better by thinking better.
Whether you're going through a major life change, looking to deepen your understanding of yourself, or hoping to improve your relationships with others, The Shift is here for you.
We're your hosts, Isla and Yashar, an endlessly curious sister and brother team.
As certified brain-based executive coaches with backgrounds in medicine and management, we combine the neurosciences, performance psychology, strategic planning methodology, and mindfulness techniques to empower your transformation from the inside out.
Join us in conversation as we explore better ways to show up for ourselves and each other. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's topic is potential. We're going to talk about it and what it means, how we use it, how it hinders us, and how we can shift it with compassion to work for us. So this topic comes up a lot because, we are hired as performance coaches, essentially. We are your leadership coaches, but really you are banking on us seeing your potential to pull you through to get to the places you want to get. So we had to sit with this idea of potential and how, again, where are the places it hinders us and how can we use it to our advantage to optimize the type of progress we want to see in ourselves, in our communities, in the work we do. And we thought to bring it to the podcast to discuss how to mind shift potential. So Yash, I would love you to start off and tell me your thoughts on this topic.
I think this topic is very similar to many other personal development topics. It's a matter of understanding two sides of the same coin. And it's something of a concept that we repeat in many other episodes, and we definitely repeat with our clients. And that is, it's a concept that requires an and statement. It's not one thing or another. And what I mean by that is if we're solely focusing on the opportunities ahead of us and what we haven't fulfilled yet, then we're not taking inventory and acknowledging what's present in our strengths. Then we're left with a void. And if we're only looking about what's right in front of us, and oftentimes maybe the challenges that live right in front of us, then we don't give ourselves the opportunity to dream and to think about what else could be created within us and with the team members or the individuals that we're working with. So the combination of those two things, of taking inventory of what are our strengths and what are the challenges we're facing, and allowing ourselves to dream and hope for something into the future, allows us to grow, evolve, and to have an opportunity to fulfill our potential, as it were. And so oftentimes I find when people struggle with this word, it's because they're looking at it from a single side of that coin. And I would argue and encourage us to look at both sides of the same coin and have an and conversation when we speak about potential.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about this again when I think about clients or I think about my relationships and how I use potential, because ultimately it is one of my superpowers to see potential in you. Like most, as my clients would know, working with us, the thing is, I will see things in you that you might not see yet. And that's part of the magic of working together, is that I see the potential, but the reason it works within a client relationship is because I'm there then to build your capacity to reach that potential, right? So in that circumstance, potential is not being thrown on you with this pressure and expectation of all the things you should be. It's actually meeting you as a good friend of like, does this align with the version of you that you want to turn into? Does this align with your dreams? Does this align with your values? And then we strip away all the expectations, right, of what society told you, what your parents taught you, what your partner might tell you, and we get to the core of what you see as your own core potential that is aligned again with your values, with your own dreams. And we make potential, first of all, authentic to you. And then second of all, we build a relationship together where we work on building your capacity to attain that, to take the baby steps necessary, take the large steps necessary, take the risks necessary with the support and spotting of a team to then achieve that dream. And so I think that's why it works in our settings. And that's why at first I struggle thinking about it, because I'm like, no, you need it. But I realized, no, it's because we do so much extra work around potential that's why it works for us in this relationship, because again, number one, we're stripping away the should have, could have, would have, because they're not serving us, right? The first thing you do when you work with us is get really down to the core of your core values and your core aspirations and your core goals of the type of life you are building sustainably, not just for a short-term gain, but really like, what is this all for? So we're really building your dreams and goals from a place that first of all starts out with your authentic voice. And then in that relationship, every step of the way, we're building the muscles. We're building the muscles to be able to achieve it. And so doing all this is what kind of sets us up for success. And that's why we optimize this process, is because the way traditionally out in the wild potential is used, it's usually like expectations met with like harshness on yourself, always feeling like you failed. And so really our equation is how to meet potential with compassion and then actual tools to realize your dreams.
What you said reminds me of the line, potential is a lonely word. And I think, like many other things, again, it's a tool that could be used. And depending on how you use that tool, it could be very damaging or it can be very rewarding and uplifting. And so, one of the things I was thinking about when we were preparing for this episode was exactly what you said. Coaching works. And I don't even mean coaching in the traditional sense as you described. I mean coaching in any relationship where there's trusted advice, but also more than maybe the trusted advice, there's trusted listening and understanding and reading between the lines and holding of space for an individual to be able to go into the parts of their psyche and their emotionality that reawakens something within them that gives them the desire to want to do more with themselves, for their community, and in a way where it's not just beating themselves over the brow, but there is an intrinsic motivation for the outcome, for the learning, for the journey of which they're, about to begin. And so that someone believing in us, someone holding space for us, allows potential to become this beautiful thing, as opposed to, as you said, Isla, this lackluster, full of expectation and letdown. And
yeah.
And one of the key differentiators, which I'm going to circle back on, I just said it, but I want to really underline and highlight, is this intrinsic desire to work for yourself and for the thing that you're after. And we have to be very mindful about how we look at that, because one could say, I want to lose weight or I want to make more money, and have very externally validating reasons for that. And those goals, even if your potential, let's say, is to reach them, won't ever be as fulfilling or as exciting as understanding why you want to even step into that version of you, why you want to take on that potential that exists for you. And we'll be always more content, more filled with gratitude, and more confident in ourselves if we understand why it is that we want to step into this potential, beyond the vanity, beyond the external validation, and beyond the dream or the hope that by doing this, life would be better from an external point of view.
So you're talking, I had to start taking notes already because I had already responses and I knew I was going to forget them. I think it goes down to one of our core things we teach right away in any of our trainings, anytime you work with us, is the power and necessity really of self-authoring, right? Like that is what the intrinsic motivation is. It's my favorite mind shift tool. It's the self-authoring piece. The thing that means most to me is that I need and desire constantly to know that I am the one making these decisions. It comes from an internal place for me, my internal compass. And everyone needs it, but for me, it's very loud in the sense of like, that's always been my relationship of why things don't work for me or do work for me. It's that relationship I have with myself of my knowing, right? Like this is actually for me, I'm doing this for you. And kind of fine tuning that relationship with your own self-authoring, with your own knowing, is such a critical component to when potential helps you and when potential fails you in essence, because who's writing this script, right? Like if it's you writing your script, then let's get to work. And if it's someone else writing your script, then yeah, of course it's going to be met with resistance and expectations and feeling like you're constantly failing yourself. But it's because it's the author was never you. So this intrinsic motivation and the self-authoring is critical. And so two examples come up from real life that I feel like bring this home. So one of the things I said, early on in this conversation was that that's a gift I have to see the potential in people. But what I've learned lately in many like really important conversations I've had over the last couple of months is just because I see it in you, if you don't see it in you, I can't see it for you and I can't make you see. And it's been very hard for me because for me, the kind of person I am, I'm like a fixer, a problem solver, like I already know the solution, let's go. And I've had to learn and teach myself to sit back and realize that is not my role in all settings and all places. Again, yes, professionally, it works in some ways, but personally, it doesn't actually work. And like, if you don't see what I see, or you can't see even within yourself, then I can't see for you. And you need to find that pathway yourself within yourself. And I might be wrong, even in a lot of cases. I might see something that you just don't see or don't want to see it. And I have to be okay with that. So again, back to the self-authoring piece, because it has to come from you. Like what I see is not what you see. So you have to see whatever it is you need to see. You have to find that road for yourself and decide what is worth your risk and what is not, what is worth your effort, what is not. And so that's one thing I've noticed. And I think a lot of our listeners out there who are fixers and problem solvers and like kind of love to get in there and like get it done, this is something you're going to have to unlearn and kind of learn a tool of when it is time for you to step back and it's not yours to fix and it's not yours to do. And we all have that for various reasons. A lot of ways that's how we keep ourselves safe. There's like a lot of codependency that we've probably learned in different parts of our life, but now we're at a point where we have tools to unlearn some of these things that no longer serve us. And so yes, this might be a pattern that you've had in the past. If it's not serving your future, we can start unlearning them and finding better tools. So that was one example I have, is that even when you see, it's really the person has to self-author this, the person has to see it themselves. And so it might not be yours to fix, see, or push through. And that's also becomes pressure on that person, because they'll always be failing you in that way too. Like, I see this potential in you, and they're like, I'm not there, I'm overwhelmed, like it's too much. And so I had a specific conversation a couple months back, and I really was like, every word I say is not actually helping the situation, it's hindering it. I'm putting expectations on a person, I'm overwhelming them, I'm literally setting them up to fail if I keep talking. So the best way and the best and the most compassionate care in that moment was to say nothing and allow them to be where they are and not dismiss their reality. And I think that's a really important part of this conversation as well. I have one more thing to say about this, but I'll let you come in. Any thoughts on anything I just said?
Yeah, the slight hybrid version for me is that I'm having this conversation with you because I believe in you and I've seen you step into these types of roles or these types of behaviors or these types of accomplishments in X, Y, or Z way. And if it wasn't so important for you, for me, for this relationship, for what you've told me is your desire, then we wouldn't have to have this conversation. And I think that's a hybrid version of what you're saying. It's like, I still see it in you. I
Yeah.
still believe in you. And also you got to do the work. And I'm not going to be able to lift that weight or move that boulder or solve that problem for you. However, that space I hold, I cherish, and I believe in you. And if you weren't worth it to me, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you to begin with. And so that
Yeah.
goes into a lot of other conversations we have where not all relationships are the same. And so we have to acknowledge that just because we feel comfortable with a certain conversation and a certain way of doing things, we have to also acknowledge that the other person may hear it differently. And so everyone has to take inventory of their own relationships with their own people. However, I know I actually really enjoy when I receive that type of feedback from a trusted source. And it doesn't feel as much of a you've let me down, but more like I'm really here cheering for you because I know you can reach that next step. And also, you got to do the work. And so there's a little bit of a slap back into reality and also a feeling of I'm not alone in this. And so I think that's a hybrid that I would provide for that type of dialogue.
Hi, friends. We have some news. We have a new course coming out this spring entitled Rethinking Productivity. Now, this course is born out of a real need we've seen within our community, with you, our dear listeners, and with our friends and family, which is everyone, to be honest, is burnt out. overwhelmed, and unable to tackle what they have to do, but sadly, unable to find the resources to tackle what they really want to do. And so we thought, just like the way we shift the way we think about leadership, we thought it was time to produce a course to shift the way we think about productivity. Like always, we gather the latest in brain-based research on insight generation, sustainable creativity, and innovation to help you build the tools and resources to optimize your creativity, to optimize your productivity from a place of authenticity and real impact. In the show notes, you'll find a link with more information. But what I want to bring your attention to is before this course launches in the spring, we're offering it 2 for 1. So when you purchase it now, you'll get this course and our Rethinking Leadership course for the price of one. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You'll find all the information in the show notes.
And I think a caveat in that conversation is that, yeah, that boulder is for you to lift, but if you need help, just ask. That is also like a little part of the self-compassion piece, is like, you actually don't need to do it all alone. We've been taught that, but it's wrong. Like, leaning into community is really critical. And that's really how we were all meant to be together, is in community. And so, that does have to come from you, that ask of, hey, this is hard. Can you help me? Or I really can't see how to navigate this. Can we co-create an outcome that is better for us? And then the answer is, if you're both willing to put in the work, absolutely, yes, let's do it then. But every point of this needs to come from each person's intrinsic desire. Again, I had this conversation a couple times with some people about certain things, and I could feel they were like acting out of obligation, maybe, or it presented as obligation, that they felt that they had to do certain things. And one of the conversations I kept having multiple times in various settings actually lately is like, what I want most is for you to do what is like aligned for you. I don't want you to ever do anything in obligation to me, right? Because again, it's this unneeded pressure that we believe this is how we love and care for each other. But that's actually not true. That comes with resentment and, again, those expectations, and we end up putting so much pressure on each other. Instead, like, do the actions that are aligned with the version of you want me to meet you, or what you are able to even at this time. And then I know how to make choices from that place, because I know those are coming authentic from you and our reality and whatever we're facing, versus, again, like these expectations of what you feel you should do. Because again, all that shoulding is going to put us into a place where we are actually not serving each other, or this relationship, this union, this partnership, in a way that's going to fulfill anybody.
I think of when I'm speaking with my young son about this, because part of my role, I feel like, is to outline the values of our home, of our family, and of what his mother and I work very hard daily to achieve, whether it's within ourselves or our relationship with each other or our community at large. So part of that is an expectation. And I have to be very honest with myself that I am putting out an expectation for him. And the hybrid version, again, is, as I listen to you speak, is allowing him to find his voice and how it aligns for him. We have our family values and ideas that we like to uphold. And so I ask him often, like, is this a version of you that would make you more proud of yourself? If you lived this way with your classmates, with your teachers, with your parents, with yourself, would you be happier going to bed, resting your head on your pillow and saying, I did this type of, work today? And his answers are always yes. And so I just put that out there because he may, quote unquote, fall short externally watching his behavior. Like, he may not live up to that, version of himself, as many of us don't, and have ups and downs in our day. However, it is still his desire to be more like that, be more that version of himself. So he's proud of himself. So I just put that out there as something that, again, we talk about work and we talk about various adult relationships, but I think with children, it's really important, at least in my point of view, and I would love to hear what you have to say, Isla, where expectation doesn't have to be a negative thing. Again, it's another tool if paired with the intrinsic driver of the individual moving towards that expectation. And I think this is a very tricky subject because I can hear the arguments in my own head as I'm even saying this out loud. And also as somebody who really thrived in sports, in school, in relationships, when a little bit of, kick in the pants were given to me. It's like, do better, get up, like get there. And then I found this courage, this strength, this ability within myself where it actually served me very well in various environments. And so when I'm thinking this through, as you're saying the things you're saying, I recognize that there's a little bit of a friction, a tug of war within me where I like expectation. And I also really understand psychologically, scientifically, and also emotionally why intrinsic driver and identifying and aligning from the inside matters. And so I would just put that out to you. What's your relationship with those pieces and how I'm describing it?
So that's really interesting. I think I know I have a deep aversion from people telling me things to do that I don't want to do. So I don't like it in that way. But again, it goes to the core of how we even are having this conversation is because it's misaligned from my core values and the potential I see in myself. So when that is misaligned, I hate it. I hate being told what to do. I hate being those expectations being put on me. However, when I'm in the presence of people who see me and see things that I can't see in certain moments, it's powerful. But again, those are the things that I also want to see in myself. So I feel that I have a great relationship with that. I love it. I have this quote that's like, give me wings and trust my flight. That's where that comes from, right? This idea that you see something in me, you believe in me, and you trust my flight. That to me is like a superpower and a beauty in certain relationships I have that I could not live without. So in a lot of ways, that is potential, that is expectation. But because again, it's aligned with me, and then I love it. In other settings, no, I absolutely despise it. And I feel like it gives me anxiety and overwhelm, and I don't want it part of me. I'm also someone who puts wild expectations on myself. And again, these words, expectations, potential, let's shift them. I have, delusional dreams. I say delusional because a lot of these things I have dreams of have no even thing in reality. Like I wanted to write. I didn't go to school for writing. I don't have any training. I started to write. And then I was like, I want to be published. And now I'm being published. Like in certain ways, like that's delusional, right? But I saw this in myself. When I was doing it, it felt aligned. Like when I write, it does something within me that like, I know this is meant to be born through me. Something magical is happening. I did the steps necessary. I just kept doing it. I applied to agents and publishers for a year with nothing, so much rejection. And then, it happened. So if it wasn't for the idea of the potential I saw in myself and the expectations I put, would that have been a reality? No, probably not. So a lot of I had audacity to dream. And I think, again, when potential is used powerfully and with compassion and aligned action, then it makes your audacious dreams come true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's only delusional because in the current version of you and your life at the current moment, there's no grounding or anchoring as a physical, being of what's been expressed by you, but as what you hold within you and the excitement you have for that dream. It's very real. And you only got to where you are by putting aligned action, as you said. And that reminds me of a professor of psychology, Gabrielle Oettinger, who wrote a book on rethinking positive thinking. And she put a formula out that you actually worked through, not knowing the formula at the time. And that's a tool I'd love to share in this conversation because it really grounds what we're talking about. And Gabrielle Oettinger talks about how when you have a wish, like you did, to write a book, you then think of the outcome. That's the dream part of it. You're like, okay, this is my wish to write a book. What's the outcome of that? If this wish is granted and I am writing a book, I am published, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And you're in your dreamland. You're in that blue sky. Everything's awesome. Like, what does that do for me? Most people stop at that point. And I think that's the pitfall of potential. That's the pitfall of where expectation comes on and unfulfilled expectation becomes a burden. But she goes on to say, after the wish and the outcome, there's the obstacle. Now you start to actively think about what's in the way of me writing this book. What's in the way of the wish? What's actually actively blocking me from doing this thing? And then after that, she moves on to say, there's a plan. I now make an active, aligned action plan for addressing those obstacles that I just came up with. And the acronym for that is WOOP, WOOP. And so you have your wish, your outcome, your obstacle, and your plan. And that's the science of positive thinking if you want to do it well. Because just looking at the dream alone doesn't work. And just looking at the obstacles doesn't work either. And so it goes right back to the beginning of this conversation where I said it's both sides of the same coin. We need both if we want to be successful. And without knowing the details of everything you did to become published, Isla, I know for a fact that that's what you did. You had to work through that, or it wouldn't have come to fruition. And so that is one tool that I highly encourage anyone who's, wrestling with their potential to think of, look at, and actually work through to see what hidden gems are within them. You might be heavy on the dream side and not enough on the obstacle and the plan side. You might be so focused on the obstacle that crushes you from even coming up with a plan that you need to spend some time actually feeling out your wish, emotionally, somatically getting into that wish and the outcome of that wish and that dream of that wish. So there is a little fire under your butt, so you can get to work in a intrinsically motivated, aligned action kind of way, not just, again, I have to beat my brow to do this. And so when I put that out for you, Isla, is it fair for me to assume that that's how it actually worked out for you?
It is. And I think there is a layer that I want to also bring in here, because I think it's paired with a lot of current talk. People use the words like manifestation and calling in things. And I like to bring that into a reality in the sense of like, what does that look like practically? Because while, yes, energetically, I think a lot of this work we do shifts the energies from our, inner child work and, working with our self-worth to bring in these dreams, right? There is also energetic shifts that need to take place with your inner healing, whether you're working with a coach or a therapist or an energetic practitioner. But you're doing all this work, you're calling all these dreams in, and then the reality comes that when they come in for you, are you ready to face them? And that's another part of this conversation that I was, brainstorming about as we were preparing for today's episode is, a relationship is a perfect example where people are calling in a relationship with, their partner, and they want a person that's healthy, that does the work, that's able to articulate and be kind. And they call in all this stuff, right? They ask for it. And then that person arrives and they're not prepared for them. They're not prepared to meet that person with all the things that they thought they wanted. And they probably still do. It's not that they don't want them, it's that they've been working with old tools for so long. They don't have the new tools to meet their manifestation. They don't have the new tools to meet this goal, this dream. So part of this work with potential is also building those resources and muscles within yourself to then meet your goals. You will also probably have to meet it as a new version of yourself, learning to be, but using new tools. So in this, again, in the same example of a partnership, it's like, oh, I have to look at my partner eye to eye now, versus the idea that I'm there, I know everything, I control everything, I save everyone needs me. When you're actually calling in that healthy relationship, that's not going to be that dynamic. And so it requires you to shed that version of you and show up as the new version of you, or the version that you really want to be, which is calling in an equal partner to like be able to do this and co-create this together in tandem. And that is also part of the work of potential, dreams, manifestations, whatever we're calling it at this point, which is you're technically calling in something that you have yet to experience. So it will require a version of you that you maybe have yet to be. And so that is also part of the work.
And a similar idea to what you're saying is often not only are we not prepared for it, and you explain that beautifully, I often also see individuals get thrown off by how it comes into their life. and they become judgmental about the how it showed up and how this manifestation, this potential, whatever nomenclature you want to use to describe it, it's this idea that it didn't come about the way I thought it'd come about. And so I remember talking to someone I was coaching a couple of years ago, and they're really struggling with the way their idea about this thing they wanted to happen came into their life. They actually did a lot of the work. They worked on their potential, so to speak. They built intrinsic motivations. And then when this event unfolded for them, they were really thrown off by the how. And we had to have a very honest conversation about, are you going to enjoy, appreciate, have gratitude for the fact that it's here, or get analytical and critical and almost disgruntled by how it's come to be here? And so if it's the thing you wanted is here, why are we so caught up on the how it arrived? And it was a really interesting conversation. And I find that often when we do build our internal capacity up and we do work towards potential, we have to sometimes let go of how these things come about and show up for us, and allow us to move a little bit into it, again, intrinsically using ourselves as a compass to navigate whatever's come up.
So we know traditionally, however the word potential is used, usually is coming with a lot of expectations and pressure and overwhelm, and ultimately dismissing your reality and dismissing where you are and what you need. We hope some of these tools shifted the way you can see potential with more self-compassion, and mostly with the tools to take your power back, to remember that whatever your dreams are, whatever it is that you want for yourself, let it come from a place that's intrinsic to your needs, your values, your goals, and be gentle on yourself. It doesn't all come at once. It doesn't all come in the way you think it will be. But if you spend your time, your baby steps every day, realigning with little parts of yourself that you love most, that's going to be the building blocks to build whatever it is you want to do. It doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come sometimes years. But the critical component of all of this is when you dream from a place that is anchored in your self-worth, that's anchored in the type of sustainable future you want to build, partnerships, relationships, community. And then you know that whatever you're doing, you're in the right place at the right time. Thank you for listening, friends. What shifted for you during this episode? We'd love to hear your insights. Write us with any questions, commentary, or episode ideas at theshift@mindshiftleadership.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, we would deeply appreciate a like and subscribe.
The Shift is brought to you by MindShift Leadership, a heart-centered, evidence-based, mindset-powered leadership company, empowering you with the training to prioritize mental health, inclusion, and performance optimization.